understand, which I think we can make that simple conclusion. That it is a simple conclusion that, atmospheric carbon dioxide is not a major driver for the Earth climate system. This is why when all the data started to show up, for example, data for the last recent 10 or 15 years or so, where one could not really find a clear impact of the increasing atmospheric carbon dioxide on the Earth, for example, global temperature, for example, one would not be able to find that. They started to make this sort of a revisionist sort of a story by saying, well, we have predicted that it doesn't have to warm the Earth system all the time. You know what? It come a bit too late in terms of scientific hypothesis testing. Those people have been really strongly projecting and been claiming all over the place about how you increase atmospheric CO2, you're bound to make the Earth warmer, and it ought to be able to show up in the global temperature. And now that the global temperature doesn't show that, they started to make this sort of revisionist story. I think with that, I'll just stop and then let Dave go in on this.
Yeah, I think the issue is that, we want to make everything a black or white issue, and the idea is that either humans affect the climate or they have no effect on their environment whatsoever. And I think we can definitely say humans affect our environment in many ways, some good, some very bad. And that's why we try to do things much better on. But with this issue in particular, carbon dioxide is not a pollutant in that sense. It is not harmful to life on Earth, and it is not likely to create major changes in the system and climate system that we really are seeing in the press. One of the things I think that it was classic about, it must have been 10 years ago now, Willie and I were in Congress. We were asked to testify, and Michael Mann was there, and he essentially made the comment that the sun has no influence on climate. And he was stopped by Senator Inhofe, who said, are you saying that the sun has no impact whatsoever? And his answer was, no, of course it has impact on climate, but we just can't control that. And I think that's where it comes all back to, is this whole discussion really isn't a science discussion, it's a controlling discussion. I think there's other ulterior motives as to why you're not hearing the standard climate 101 course material, but instead hearing things that various people want you to hear.
I was sharing on the last segment that I did, segment 1 of Climate and Weather, that I did see Inconvenient Truth. I did read the book. I did see the movie, and I was hypnotized. Really feel that I got hypnotized, A, because I was receptive. I do feel on a completely, this is a whole separate statement, but I do feel that, and it bothers me that we pollute so much. We meaning just humans, industries, the whole bit. That's a separate, connected but separate conversation. But what sold me then was the computer models that were used to tell their story. And then I realized that computer models, it's like garbage in, garbage out, data in, data out. Am I correct?
Gospel in, garbage out.
Yeah. In other words, I didn't realize the extent to which computer models, because for the average person, gentlemen, when we see a computer model happening, we unconsciously receive that as being factual, like true, factual. And therefore, you can do a computer model of something and you can tell any story you want to tell. And when you're listening to people who say and communicate that they're communicating the science of something, I would bet you 98% of the people or 90% of the people believe it unconsciously. Am I right?
I think so. Yes, indeed. I have to admit that it is very powerful. I mean, it is indeed taken me that long, like I say. After 20 years, let's say the first 15 years I was very quiet. I was quiet because I want to be sure, right? I want to be sure because as a scientist, you just cannot talk and then be irresponsible about what you say. So I want to be very, very responsible person, and then I also want to give them the benefit of the doubt, right? In science sense, that is very, very important. But then, but of course, I was completely not impressed of the computer modeling, because we know that it's purely guesswork, and it's worse than a computer game, because this is a game in which there's not much of a level of sophistication that they claim they have. There is no chance that for them to even present pick any type of cloud you want, please. Any type of cloud, name it, okay, that you can read in a standard meteorological textbook. That tell me which one have they represented the cloud in the system correctly. Just pick some part of the world ocean, see which part of it that they have presented it correctly. Pick any land surfaces that you want. Tell me which one have they done it correctly. So it is not even close to resemblance the reality that we have. And the problem with those powerful, here's a few simple points about climate model. Here's the problem that I have with them. Let me summarize it in maybe 1 or 2 points or 3 points. Even when you got it right, you got it for the wrong reason. Let's say that they always say, oh, we can do this well. We can calculate this global temperature. It looks so impressive. We can fit all of this, and it seems to agree with it. But I would say you know for sure you're going in that because looking at your climate model, you didn't put in this, you put in that, you didn't put in that, and yet how come your result is looking the same like the what is measured? That's totally suspicious. Okay? And then most of the time that they do, let's say in terms of try to project the Earth system to the future, I mean, they know outright that they have not included all these other factors like ocean current or even how the sun would do. They have not included all of these key factors that we know that is working right now, and then they just simply chose to say that, well, we're going to turn off this because we're going to study only the CO2 effects, and the future and it's going to be driven by all of that. So this is where that is really fundamentally wrong with the climate models because they are not even to the level of sophistication of tools that we know that would work properly. This is just not even close. I mean, computer game, you actually can get a sense of joy out of playing those computer games. But this one is just purely a black box that you kind of don't know what it actually does and is going around in it, and you just spew out something and okay, that's the truth. I mean, this is ridiculous to try to think that the climate model could do all this work that people claim that it can do. It just simply cannot be.
Thank you for sharing that. It's extremely hypnotizing. It sold me. I'm sure it sold many people that unconsciously are environmental activists, advocates, people that are very concerned. Good people bought it. I've been on a mission for 25 years, and part of my job is to stay receptive and to ask questions and to ask difficult questions to bring forth new answers and new directions for humanity. But the average person, once you buy in on something, it's very, very difficult to say, you know what, during this period of time, when I heard this, I bought it. But I've looked at facts. I've done an analysis of this. I've spent a lot of time on it. And I realized there's missing pieces, critical missing pieces that aren't even in the center of this focus that makes me retract. And now I'm in a different place.
That's very good. In fact, I do curious about how you really physically change your mind. I mean, I would just give again, reiterate the example. I mean, for example, we know CO2 is a greenhouse gas, right? That one, no one would deny that, right? And then we know that greenhouse gas will give this so-called warming effect, yes, because you have more of these changes of the energy budget that you can actually only add heat to the system, right? So, and then when you look at the real world data, and we know, for example, let's go back to the example of last 15 years or so, right? We know that this CO2 is warming, is rising, still rising rapidly, okay? It's going up, changes quite a bit, by the way, last 15 years. And when you look at the temperature data, and somehow this temperature data is not only not warming up, it's sort of showing a slow cooling tendency.
Yep.
Don't you think that you should really take a step back and take a deep breath instead of still be so committed to that blind faith that you actually have put in? I mean, some people are not able to step out of that. I don't know what is it about what we say here that is so offending to them. Some people would just quickly say, Willie Soon, well, he's taking money from ExxonMobil, so on and so forth, that he could not be able to make any clear statement on science or things like that. I mean, I will give an example if we can. Still have time, we can talk about the polar bear example, that I've done research on polar bear. So on the issues, indeed, that people are saying you are discredited because you are taking money from ExxonMobil to do research. Well, I say, I've also taken money from National Science Foundation. I've also taken money from NASA. I've taken also money from United States Air Force. Does that mean that, which part of it that you think that I say is not true? This is where the issue has become very ad hominem and becoming senseless in a lot of ways. Objectivity is extremely important. Money could never ever buy a person like myself or David Legates, I can assure you. I know him long enough to know that money was never ever a factor. You know, our research has always been what you call curiosity-driven sort of a research.